Last weekend, my friends and I decided to spend an unforgettable night together. With our graduation coming up, we thought it would be a great idea to have a seance for some excitement and fun. Of course, there were some discussions because of Alaric's fears, but in the end, we convinced him. At night, we gathered in the garage of Alaric's house with candles, a table, and a Ouija board. When we placed the board with some symbols on it, there was a strange tension between us. There was a little bit of anxiety on everyone's faces, but also excitement. "You go first, Alaric," I said, laughing. His eyes widened, but he finally mustered up the courage. We knelt around the board and put our hands together. A few minutes after Alaric started reading his words, we noticed that there was no movement on the board. We all kept our eyes on the board, but it remained silent. For a moment, we were hopeful when Alaric continued to read excitedly, but the result was the same. "Only the spirits are sleeping," he said. The tension in us slowly turned into humor. Finally, we looked at each other laughing and started joking to keep the mood light. We left the garage laughing, the excitement and fear of the evening replaced by smiles. When I got home, we talked in our WhatsApp group. "What a disappointment, but we still had a lot of fun," I wrote. "Exactly. Maybe the next session will be better," Sam added. "Let's really summon the spirits this time," Alaric wrote back. "What if he doesn't show up?" We decided to reschedule. "Can we meet on Friday night?" I asked. Everyone agreed, and we decided to meet again to get more out of our extraordinary seance experience. Friday arrived, and we all set off with great excitement to Alaric's grandfather's house. When we heard that we would be gathering in the attic of the house, the curiosity and anxiety that surrounded us grew even more. "It will be great to have a seance here," Alaric said. We clumsily set up the Ouija board, and when we lit the candles, the dark and mysterious atmosphere enveloped us. We all looked at Alaric in the hope that the spirit would come. After taking a few deep breaths, Alaric began to read the words of the session. When he said the first words, there was no movement or echo from the board. We waited for a while, but the board remained silent. "I'm sick of this. Nothing is happening," Sam said, bored. As soon as he said that, the Ouija board began to tremble, and then the letters on it suddenly began to move. We all opened our eyes and focused on the changes on the board. The word YES appeared on the blackboard. Then the letters multiplied, one after another. While the echo of the question, "Spirit, are you with us?" was still reverberating in everyone's minds, the letters on the board suddenly became HELP. It was hard to explain which of us was feeling what at that moment. Fear and curiosity were mixed together. "We have to keep going," Alaric said, focusing on the session and the spirit board trying to communicate with us. The Ouija board suddenly began to shake. As we all kept our eyes on the board, a faint silhouette appeared on the edge of the glass in front of my eyes. "There it is!" I pointed with my finger in the direction of the silhouette in amazement. But when my friends looked, they could see nothing. Only I could see the frightening presence, and that frightened me even more. Just then, the board suddenly split in two. The pieces of the board made a terrible sound as they fell to the ground. Everyone was startled and retreated. The fear in all of us was unbearable. Without thinking, we ran down the terrace in fear. When we got home, I told my family what had happened, but no one believed me. "Just a childish prank," they said, smiling. No one seemed to understand the seriousness of the fear we were experiencing at that moment. The uncertainty in my parents' eyes made me lose myself in terror. The silhouette and the broken board is a memory we will never forget. The following Friday night, I woke up from sleep. I was going to get a drink of water. I saw a white silhouette in front of the curtain. Suddenly, it disappeared into the wall. I thought it was following me. I consoled myself with the grogginess of sleep. 2 weeks after our session, I was going to sleep at home again, and I saw someone with horns in the mirror. I called my father. He came, and I told him there was someone in the mirror. He said there wasn't. When I looked up, there really wasn't. That night, my psychology completely broke down. My father took me to a church. The old priest gave me a chain with a cross. He prayed. He told me some prayers to recite every day. I never saw anything again, but every Friday was a nightmare for me. I was used to hearing a baby crying every Friday, and I was getting used to living with what happened. 2 years later, I had a very beautiful dream, but I was told not to tell anyone. After that dream, everything went back to normal. My friends stayed with what they had on the terrace. They had no problem. But I had a great tragedy.
I am Jin, an exchange student coming to the United States from China. At the end of last year, we were given an assignment in our history class to research the history of a certain place and present it at the beginning of 3rd grade. I decided to take this project to the US for my vacation and homework, and my friend Alex there was willing to guide me in this research. When I arrived in America, Alex met me at the airport. We spent the first 4 days wandering around his hometown, meeting new cultures and being mesmerized by the energy of the big cities. As we walked around under the city lights, I was mesmerized by the diversity America had to offer, but the real adventure we had in mind was elsewhere, the mysterious town of Sleepy Hollow. Alex and I were finally ready for homework, and it was time to go to Sleepy Hollow. The town was 1,000 miles from where we were, and a long drive awaited us. We jumped in our car, gathered our equipment and research notes, and hit the road. We knew we were in for a great journey and mysterious discoveries. When we set off, we knew that our total journey was 1,000 miles, about 1,600 kilometers, and we estimated that it would take 4 days. On the first day, we stopped in a small town after setting off and spent the night there. On the second day, we stayed in another town, wandered around to experience the local culture and explore the surroundings, tasting different flavors. On the third day, we did not neglect to pass through a forested road. That morning, we set off with good energy. But suddenly, an old man appeared under the trees on the side of the road. With his long white hair, tattered clothes, and deep scars on his face, he looked like a part of the forest. His appearance aroused fear in me. We had to avert our eyes from him as we passed him and continued on our way. As evening approached, about 90 miles, 145 kilometers from our destination, our car suddenly broke down. We slowed down and stopped when the engine started making strange noises. Alex and I looked at each other anxiously and tried to assess the situation. Alex confidently said, "I know a bit about these things," and went to the hood. He quickly opened the hood and inspected the engine, but he couldn't find much about the problem. "This looks serious," he said. Just then, the old man we had seen earlier was slowly approaching us. Although we hesitated to recognize him, we kept our eyes on each other and paused. When he came closer, we could see his face better. "Get well soon. Where are you going?" he asked. I told him where we were going, and for a moment a cold expression appeared on his face. "Don't go there at night. Anything can happen to you," he said. "What happened to the car?" he asked. "It broke down," I said. "This car is not broken," said the old man. "Put the key in and start it." Desperate, I put the key in and tried it. Strangely, the car started. Alex and I looked at each other in horror, but the man's cold speech created fear in us. "I live alone in that hut over there. You go. I'll be here, but take care of yourself. Bad energies are following you," he said. At that moment, fear and curiosity merged in our eyes. The sound of the wind coming through the dark trees added to our fears. "We have to be careful," I said to Alex. We decided to continue on our way, but the words of the man we had left behind were still in the back of our minds. We finally came to the town of Sleepy Hollow. The entrance to the town had a foggy and dark atmosphere. As we slowly made our way, we strangely saw the old man again by the fountain at the entrance of the town. At that moment, we realized that this man was not a normal person. When we locked eyes with him, he said, "Stop," and we got scared and quickly walked away from him. With our thoughts in turmoil, we breathed a sigh of relief when we saw the hotel. We walked in and went to the front desk to book a room. When we told the man who gave us our room what had happened, he had a puzzled look on his face. "I can't believe I'm hearing this," he said, and then said he couldn't comment. "Good evening," he said as he handed us the key. In the morning, we decided to visit the historic church and the cemeteries. I took more photos than I should have. I took notes, but I was thinking about that old man. Who was he? Why had he appeared 3 times? We had no idea. Normally, I would call such things urban legends. I didn't tell anyone about what we experienced because I didn't think it would be believable. On the way back, Alex and I were tired, so we decided to take turns driving. As we drove, our minds were still on that man. Fear and tiredness were intertwined, and the journey seemed so long. I felt like I was part of the events, but I didn't know what that man and his words meant to me. Finally, my journey ended at Alex's house. I was very tired, so I had a snack and fell into a deep sleep, but in the night I had a nightmare. The old man grabbed me by the throat and gouged out my eyes, saying, "Why did you run away and leave me?" Then he said, "Alex is going to die." When I woke up, I couldn't get out of the nightmare for a long time. The next day I went to the airport and went back to China. A week passed and I got the bad news from Alex's family. He had died in a car accident. When I heard that, I was psychologically very bad and I couldn't eat for a month. This vacation will remain in your memory as the worst adventure of my homework life.